Welcome. Join us as we take a look at what's currently happening in our neighborhood with COVID-19. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, welcome to the CuppaChino Club social TV channel. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. And a warm welcome to my co-host, Fahola Manuel. How are you, Fahola?
I'm fine, thank you. I need that warm welcome. You can see it's freezing. Yeah, and you know what? I feel like such a wimp because I'm sure people from the rest, like in Europe or in North America, must be thinking, shame, it must be freezing where these people are. They're complaining about the cold, and it's of course nothing as harsh as the winters they experience. But still, for us Cape Townians, it's like drops down like anything lower than 15, and we completely pushed. But anyway, it has been cold. We've had some hail, so I feel justified in saying it's really cold in Cape Town. But yeah, it's been just an interesting day. Interesting, just following the COVID news and following what's happening, and just been interesting to see so many businesses and so many NGOs and organizations just pivoting, and that's exactly what we've been saying will happen. It's good to see the Sunflower Fund are doing a virtual concert, which is quite exciting because that's as a Sunflower Fund, they are just really well known for the amazing events they put together in terms of raising funds, and I know a lot of their ladies are part of the CuppaChino Club, so it's great to see that some of the local artists will be part of that show. And then, of course, what
I know, I think they've got Jimmy Nevis is on the lineup, and
Jimmy
anyone
Nevis is there, and Chad Simon and Acoustic Element and all of that. I'm giving my age away because I really can't remember who these people are. But what I think is great is that you can actually, a lot of people have sort of been stumped by the fundraising issue. That they've got all these fundraising events and they don't know how to do it. And I just think that they very cleverly have pivoted to a virtual concert. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I know that in Amsterdam and in other countries, they're doing concerts, sort of drive-in concerts, so you can come in with your car, you stay with your car, and the music actually gets fed through to through your speakers or something like that. Very interesting, innovative stuff happening in that entertainment industry.
Reminiscent of the drive-in days.
Yeah, when you were going there supposedly to watch the movie. Yeah, no, we know about that. So yeah, Brigitte, just the entertainment industry seems to have really come to the party and just finding ways to pivot, and then also just there's some shows that you traditionally would have gotten dressed and gone to the Baxter and had dinner and gone to the Baxter to watch the show. You can now buy your tickets, and actually, as I understand, you get some kind of code and you can link it to your device, and there you are, watching the show. So I think artists and that industry have done an amazing job of pivoting and just continuing to work and continuing to find innovative ways. But then you get the tourism industry, which I think is the industry that has been most adversely affected by COVID, and that's things are not looking great there.
I know there's been a lot about that, but I do know what I have seen. I think it's Tour Vest. They are starting to do online tours. And the tourists bring it's one thing. People may say, yes, I can go and do a virtual tour on YouTube, but it's not exactly the same when you have an experienced guide talking you through what you are seeing on screen. It's a completely different, they bring a dynamic and value to you watching that you wouldn't get from watching a YouTube video all by yourself. It's not quite the same.
It's not. It's not the same. And the thing about it is, I think it's more the fact that the industry has got so many role players. So you've got the hotel industry, you've got the airlines, you've got the sort of road transport, you've got just like retail. So your big malls like V&A and all of that are missing out on that tourist revenue. So you've got there's a whole line, a whole value chain here that is missing out. So it's I think that those industries are just really suffering, and it's huge capital investments that have been made into those industries, because the tourism sector is such an important sector to South Africa. And there's a lot of small businesses associated with the tourism sector, where people are just not able to make ends meet now because of it. So it's going to be interesting to see where we're at, Brigitte. And I saw a lot of people, a lot of financial services sort of gave you this 3-month reprieve, and we're coming to the end of the 3-month reprieve, and a lot of people have not gone back to work. So
Yeah.
there are huge concerns for people.
You know what I'm starting to think more and more, Viola, is that in the beginning, when we had lockdown, the hard lockdown at level 5, it was correct for the president to take the bold stand that he did, so that we had time to prepare ourselves. And even though we've seen a steady climb in the rate currently, for various reasons, which we can get into later, a lot of it related to the availability of alcohol and so on, but we can chat about that in a minute. But what I'm seeing now, just from observing the landscape, there seems to be a huge need for more engagement.
Yeah.
So that, we've passed the level 5 where we needed a top-down heavy lockdown. Now we need more engagement between the sectors and the people, with the workers, with the people in the different sectors, and even with our children.
Absolutely.
We neglecting to understand the value of engagement and buy-in. That is such an important aspect of us moving forward with COVID-19.
Yeah. And I think, the engagement, I think the most pivotal engagement is the engagement between government and the citizens at this point in time. And there's a lot of that's been lacking. And a lot of it, when it does come, it's completely confusing. And one minister saying this and another minister saying that. And I also think that there's been, there's some loud criers. So education, for example, got a lot of attention, but there were so many other things that should have been considered. But because education was getting this huge focus, and the social issues around tobacco and alcohol, that a lot of other things sort of fell by the wayside. That economic plan, there's been very little. I mean, it's not been, proclaimed quite loudly just exactly how government are expecting to rebuild the economy. So, it's actually been, there's not enough communication between sectors and social partners. That's what I'm getting. I would have loved to see BUSA and BBC, the Black Business Council. I would have loved to see business organizations take the lead on a lot of these conversations. I would have loved to see, headlines in the sort of traditional written media. I would have loved to see headlines, stories going viral from business organizations saying this is actually how we're going to deal with things. Industry leaders, this is how we're going to deal with things. Small business influencers, this is how we're going to deal with things, and this is how we're going to be helping each other. I think that's the big thing that I'm missing. So unless you actually are going onto their websites or you're going onto their social media pages to hear what they're saying, you're not going to find it. And I don't think that's good enough. I think it should actually be, front of mind. And I think the one sector I know that is appealing, and a lot of the industries and a lot of the social players are relating directly with government. So I know that the tourism industry, for example, I know that they are asking government, give us a rescue plan. How are you intending to actually rescue our sector? And I know that a lot of thought has to go into that. But again, I think that, the business organizations, and so I'm very excited about the fact that we are trying to get the CEO of Cape Town Tourism onto the show, because I think, it'd be good to know from him how we could be helping each other, and how has other business sectors and other industries actually come to support of the tourism sector.
Mm. Oh, for sure. And I see it's not just a local issue, it's a global issue all over the world.
Absolutely.
People are grappling with the same thing in the tourism industry. And it's going to take a long time for that
Yeah.
sector. And I think we mentioned, for example, people in the luxury good items, car manufacturers,
Yes.
those industries are really, really struggling at the moment. People
Yeah.
don't have money to buy cars.
Yeah.
Also, the real estate market. It's going to take a long time for those to recover, because even though you can do a lot of those things online, it doesn't mean that the affordability is there.
That's it. That's it. A lot of those luxury goods, as we say, when you have to think about your disposable income, and it's very little disposable income, a two-income household maybe goes down to a one-income household. It's incredibly difficult to justify any kind of luxury purchase. So it's really just sort of basics, bread, milk, that kind of purchase is happening at the moment. So you know it's good to see that there's still some movement in the job market. I think that a lot more people should be realizing that COVID's going to be with us for a while. Just deal with it carefully. Online interviews are now becoming the order of the day. I keep thinking about it. If big global companies can do online interviews with potential employees, globally, if head office
And
is
they've
in
been doing
France
that for years.
for
That's
years,
nothing new.
for years. So if you've got head office up in France, and there's a candidate in South Africa that you would relocate, for years they've been doing online interviews. Continue to do that, because that stimulates the economy. Putting people into jobs stimulates the economy. So this traditional way of, we've got to sort of touch and feel at a later stage, but at least start shortlisting, start getting the ball rolling on a lot of these issues. So I do believe that there's quite a lot that can still be done to make things just a little easier, especially for business. I would have really liked to hear more.
Yeah, there's so many heartwarming stories. I read one today on an international platform called Learn with Grandma. I'm not sure if I mentioned that to you before, but it's an 80-year-old granny in the UK who started this initiative of interactions, of passing on I mean, she was way ahead of her time, passing on intergenerational knowledge through digital media. How appropriate.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, she was forward thinking, and this is working amazingly well. And so I read something on her Facebook group today, and it really warmed my heart. It was about an initiative that involves UNICEF, and I think they called Fund ZA. But what they did was it was an online learning program that was already available prior to COVID-19.
Okay.
And what they did was, when they realized what was happening in the rest of the world and knowing that it's going to happen here, just before lockdown, they jumped into action. They got the telephone numbers of all the children. They were able to group them into the children that have got smartphones and those that don't. So the ones that don't have smartphones, they've got their numbers, and they actually call them to keep in contact with them physically.
Brilliant.
And they're teaching through the radios, through using, making online learning available through the local radio stations for 6 hours a day. And those that are on WhatsApp groups, they do video calling with them. They keep in touch with them. And I was so touched by the manner in which they do it. For example, the teachers have gone into online training programs themselves, with how,
That is so clever.
learning how to deal with these children. And the amount of detail they put into the article was quite heartwarming. They were saying how the mentors look out for cues. She was mentioning one instance where the child said to her, "I can't find my contacts." And that was her cue that this child needed the police.
Mm.
So she reached out to the mom, and the mom said, she is a victim of gender-based violence, and then they worked with the mom to get the problem solved. But one of the other things they mentioned, for example, is they keep an eye on what the children, their status updates on Facebook, their status updates on WhatsApp. They look out for emojis that will indicate that the child's in trouble or not
Yeah,
feeling well, and then they will reach out to those children directly. Those are practical things that I really,
absolutely.
really love.
Absolutely. So one of the I think the projects that's very close to my heart is a project called R Labs. It's a living labs concept that's actually been set up in Bridgetown, and that's exactly what they did. They set up a fantastic group called Moms 2.0, which I think is still now working during COVID, and moms do the same thing. They get taught how to deal with social media tools. They get taught to actually look at Facebook, look at Instagram, and all these places, and actually look out for teens in trouble, and then reach out to them based purely on their sort of status updates and their, everything that they do put in the public domain. So I just, Brigitte, it's more, and what's becoming more and more real to us is, yes, people companies are employing more and more digital managers now. It's not really sort of an IT or ICT issue. It's a digital
Mm,
management issue, and they are employing more digital managers. People are understanding the power. Organizations and the executive leadership are understanding the power of digital management and the impact that digital can have on your business. And so yeah, it's actually quite exciting to see what we're always talking about, which way we're going to move in terms of how we define this new normal with business. So I really feel for the tourism industry. It's going to be great to hear what they, how they are able to deal with things. I think one of the big sort of concerns and disappointments has really been this whole spike in the murder rate at local police stations, got directly related to lifting of the alcohol ban. And one of the things we were saying, I think it's the mayor of the Eastern Cape, is that who you
it,
spoke about?
it, it is the mayor of the Eastern Cape, and it's quite concerning. And I think he's heading an initiative to have the liquor ban put back into place, and it would only be lifted at level 1, because in the Eastern Cape they've seen a huge spike directly related to alcoholism. I think we spoke about it briefly yesterday as well, that it's putting hospitals under strain, it's putting doctors under strain, it's putting theaters under strain, and they don't have space for these people because the ICU wards are filled with COVID patients, and
Yeah.
so they cannot provide these critical surgeries because they don't have the capacity.
Yeah, and you know what, Brigitte, it almost seems like you've completely defeated the purpose. Everybody's trying to save lives. The whole idea of lockdown is to save lives and to save as many lives as possible. And to just sort of see the number of people that are injured and hospitalized and even die because of the violence related to alcohol abuse. And it's really alcohol abuse. And the thing that I'm not understanding is, and I get it, there's huge tax implications, there's huge industries that are involved in the alcohol space. But one of the things we spoke about right in the beginning was how that industry itself could be pivoting into the whole sanitizer space and into using alcohol in a different way, so that jobs can be saved. And so when I say this, I say this with as much respect as I can. I cannot understand why, if it's social drinking, I get it, but social drinking should actually be willing to sacrifice not having access to alcohol just to save the lives of other people, because it's really the abuse of alcohol that's causing the peaks in violent crime. And so it's just such a difficult thing. But if it's going to save lives and it's going to free up space in terms of an already overladen health system, I am very happy to support the mayor on his call for it only to be lifted in level 1.
Absolutely. And I think one needs to remind yourself that it's not about you.
Yeah,
It's easy to make it about us personally and insist
yeah,
on our rights. But we live in times where love for neighbor needs to come first.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
and particularly people, and in particular those who are less fortunate than us,
Yeah,
because that is where the problem seems to be. With
yeah,
alcohol abuse, it's those who are less
yeah, yeah,
fortunate. It really is heartbreaking when you think
yeah.
about it.
And we a lot of people were commenting on the fact that look, people are getting alcohol anyway. They're making their own alcohol. They, just just finding alcohol when the ban was there, and that's true. I'm absolutely certain that was true, but it didn't relate the amount of alcohol that was being made or sold or found, borrowed, begged, didn't relate to directly increasing the amount of violence and violent, alcohol related violence that landed people up in massive spikes in hospital. There were the number of people going into hospital because of violent crime related to alcohol was not it was just not on the radar. So yes, people were
Absolutely.
doing everything they were doing, but they were not getting enough to get so super drunk that they were hurting other people and hurting themselves. So that argument about the fact that people who had access to alcohol and they were making their own alcohol and people were still drinking, it's water thin for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. We actually have the figures to prove that that is the
Correct,
case.
correct.
Um,
But yeah, but your words, it's not about you. It's about the country. It's about what's good for us as a country right now. And so, yes, I know that he is facing tremendous amount. The mayor of the Eastern Cape, in that little city in the Eastern Cape, is facing tremendous. He must be facing tremendous opposition. I haven't read the article myself, so I don't know the details, but I suspect that he's facing tremendous opposition. But unfortunately, the numbers speak for themselves. Our premier, when he was MEC of Economic Development, also faced a lot of flack when he introduced those new, I think, new regulations around liquor. But
mhm.
it was the right thing to do. It was
Absolutely.
the right thing to do.
Yeah. The other thing that we're looking forward to getting an update on is opening up of the personal care industry. That has gone to court, and so we're waiting with bated breath to get the outcome of that. We are hoping to have Cameron Dugmore on the show on Friday,
Yes,
and hopefully we can, if that happens, we're hoping so, we can get some more information as to what's happening on the ground in local government.
correct, correct. Yeah, so there's some exciting stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to the to the shows that are coming up. I know Cameron's scheduled for Friday, so we'll definitely be able to speak to him on Friday. And we also have a very interesting show as well. Do you want to just talk about our guest Brenda?
Yes, that is scheduled for next week, Wednesday. We're going to have Brenda Adelman on the show. Um, Brenda has got a unique story. Her father shot and killed her mom, and 3 months later married her aunt. And within the context of COVID-19, we're going through huge amounts of stress. Families are under pressure, executives are under pressure, people are angry. We've got this huge Black Lives Matter that's boiling over in the US. So there's lots of areas in our everyday life in which we need to find ways to forgive and to heal and to move forward.
Yeah,
And when you think of Brenda's story, she has found a way to pivot. She's found a way to forgiveness and healing and moving forward. So I think her
mhm,
story is enormously powerful. So we're looking forward to her sharing some of the tools that she's developed to
yeah.
help us move forward.
Yeah. And then, of course, we had that great show with Anita yesterday. What a ball of fun, and what an amazing woman. And just, again, I think if we can, just if anybody who finds themselves in a situation where they are in an abusive relationship, especially an emotionally abusive relationship, really try and get Anita's book. I think it's Undercover Superhero is the name of her
That
book.
is, that is, yeah.
Desperately try and get that book. I'm almost certain available. It must be available online, but now's the time to just read that book. And what I loved about her book was it actually gives you those 5 superpowers that you can employ, and I think you could literally employ them if you're just trying to improve your life. Not, you don't even have to have been in an abusive situation. Just growing your emotional intelligence, if you can become more conscious and more aware, and just have a good read. That's a good read.
Absolutely. And we
Yeah.
also had Professor Matthews of UCT on the show. I think it was last Wednesday we had on the show, and we were talking about the huge impact that COVID-19 and lockdown has had on children and women and violence, family violence. And so we got an update from them today that there's been a shift in the amount of funding that's finally available to children who are most vulnerable. So, that was another heartwarming thing for me to read. It's taken them 10 years to make this shift in getting additional funding for
Wow.
children. Because, unfortunately, when it comes to education and it comes to feeding, it all boils down to money and funds and the availability of
Absolutely.
funds.
Absolutely.
Um,
And yeah, it does become that, and just, I think children are so precious, and again, for many of us, it's not about looking at the kids we surround ourselves with. It's looking at the majority of children in South Africa who are living in homes that are way below the, they're way below the poverty line. They child-led households. It's there's just so much that children are experiencing in the South Africa today, and the majority of our children aren't able to say that they've got fantastic childhoods, like the kind of childhood memories that they want to relive as adults. So it was such good news to hear that they had received that additional funding. It was great news, and they'll know what to do with it. She clearly knows. They clearly know what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, and just a reminder, there was a lady that I met a while ago, Lindsay, and she mentioned she's adopted a child, and she said, we often label these children as street children, but at the end of the day, they're still children. They,
Absolutely.
regardless, they're still children and they need protection.
Beautiful
Um,
children, beautiful children that somebody gave birth to and loved, and just, yeah, it's just difficult, and it's very easy to sort of sit in our ivory palaces and ivory towers and make judgments of these kids. And it's right there. I mean, every psychology 101 will tell you it's in those formative years that you actually shape the who the person will be, who that child will be. So yeah. But the great thing is, Anita said yesterday, you can develop more emotional intelligence. You can harness your emotional intelligence. So, there's hope for all of us, in terms of being able to survive this.
Absolutely. And just a shout out to Alfredo who's watching us on Facebook. And I think that's just about the updates that we've got for today. So thanks very much to those who have joined us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on LinkedIn. Warm welcome and thanks for joining us. And we do hope that you'd share this out and join us back again tomorrow for some more updates on COVID-19 and how we are coping and pivoting from South Africa. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a super duper evening or
Thanks,
afternoon further.
everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.